everyone for joining us this evening. My name's Ben Callard. I'm the National General Manager for Club Support with Australian Sailing. This is the second of our class association engagement sort of workshops online that we've rolled out this year, which sort of complements the extra emphasis that we placed on inviting class associations to the sailing summits this year. And really it's just the start of improving and increasing the engagement between Australian sailing and class associations. Based on the feedback we received after the last one, you know, we were a little bit more specific with the topic for this one, being revSPORT and the online database that they can provide us as part of your affiliation. And, you know, as we work through and receive more feedback, we'll be able to provide more and other sort of webinars on specific topics as we progress through the year and into next year. Just on the call, just really wanted to, before I hand over to Chantel, just make sure everyone knows who's here. Annie Watson is our Queensland General Manager. So thank you, Annie, for joining us. Felicity Allison, who's secretly got a camera turned off, is our Tasmanian General Manager. Chantel is our Digital Platform Manager. And I know Chantel's going to introduce him, but Ryan from revSPORT is also here, is going to do a lot of the work tonight. So thank you, Ryan, for joining us. So with that in mind, I'll hand over to Chantel to run us through what we're going to cover today. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Ben. So just to reintroduce myself, I'm Chantel Lawrence and I'm the Digital Platform Manager for Australian Sailing. So tonight we will have a system demonstration from Ryan from revSPORT, and we'll also hear from Rob from the NACRA Association. And myself and Annie are here just to kind of drive the webinar tonight and moderate any questions that come through. We are recording, so we can share this with everybody on the call as well as any other class associations that weren't here tonight. If you do have any questions, we just find it best to pop them into the chat and myself and Annie will check these, and if we do run out of any time at the end to answer the questions live, we'll provide some FAQs and amongst some other fun things in a webinar pack that we'll email out tomorrow. So just for now, while Ryan's presenting, if we can ask that all microphones just remain turned off for now. So tonight we're essentially having a walkthrough of the best features of revSPORT. The reason that we're doing it this way is that we find that people at very different levels in their use of the system, some are complete beginners, and then some may very well know the system better than what myself and Ryan do. So it makes it really hard to run like a tailored training session that caters to everybody. So from tonight, we hope that you might be able to identify how the system could help your class association. And if you're already using revSPORT, you might be able to see a different module or utility or a tool that your class isn't using that may be of interest. So now we'll bring in Ryan to run us through revSPORT.
Beautiful. Thank you, Chantel, and good evening, everyone. Lovely to see you all, and thank you for having me. So as Chantel mentioned, I'm basically just going to run through a bit of a dive into the platform, the overall functionality, a few of the main highlights that you can get out of using it. Before I do so, I just wanted to quickly share a bit of a presentation. It's only just a couple of slides, I promise. But just to give you a bit more of a contextual understanding of what revSPORT is if you haven't used it before, and then really just a quick slide on the actual architecture and the structure of it. I know Chantel is going to go into that in a little bit more detail later on. Presumably you can all see my screen. Cool. Alrighty, so for those who don't know, RevolutioniseSPORT is essentially what we call an out-of-the-box platform or an end-to-end online sports club solution. So we operate not only just for Australian sailing, but a multitude of different sports in Australia. Primarily, our core functionality revolves around, obviously, membership. But in addition to membership, we also offer a number of different features surrounding event management, course management, right through to, you know, organising your books through finances and a number of different governance tools as well. So again, this is probably a little bit outdated, but we service about 270 odd governing bodies at the moment. So again, we do cover a number of different sports across the country and internationally as well. The main one that I really wanted to highlight tonight, again, Chantel will go into this a little bit later, but is around what we call it a peak or a tiered system. And this is essentially what a class association would exist in within the Australian sailing ecosystem. So think of, we refer to accounts as portals, but if I interchange it, you'll know what I mean. Think of that top cog at the very top of the screen that you can see there as the Australian Sailing Portal. And then we would have our state associations, even class associations, right down to clubs. So it can reach down to even a 3 or 4 tiered system, but essentially they're all linked together by, we refer to it as a national backbone or ecosystem. And what that means for a member is that members will register into your class association and or a club equivalent, and their profile will automatically flow up into the State Association and Australian Sailing's portal as well. Now, the reason why it does that is so that primarily the member doesn't have to go and register into multiple different locations. Previously, and we still speak to a number of sports that might have different softwares or platforms within the one sport, and often what needs to happen is that a member will need to go and register into multiple different locations, or there's manual intervention involved from a club ops or an admin needing to import files of members member data into different systems and that sort of thing. However, in this case, the member really just registers at the lowest level, which think about the lowest cog in that hierarchy that I showed before, and it flows all the way at the top. So you've only got one member record that exists across every organisation that they should exist in. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into our test account today. So I'll just double check that you can still see that screen. Just bear with me whilst my computer's a little bit slow. Chantel, do you mind just singing out that you can see that members overview page?
Yep, all good.
Perfect. All right, so what we're looking at the moment is one of our test accounts. So it's basically a bit of a replica of what a class association or a club account would exist in what we call a peak or tiered system. So at the moment, we're staring at obviously a members list. Now, just for a bit of system architecture, the left-hand side is a list of all the features that your class association will have access to. This is just part of the core functionality that is offered as soon as you get a portal or an account with revSPORT. So from managing member information through to running events, managing your finances through to some of your governance tools at the very bottom there, you'll all have access to. Now, some of the main things that I really want to cover within this members feature, given that it is primarily the beating heart of the platform, is communicating with members, searching for them, reporting on them, and understanding the touch points that a member has with your club and class association as well. So as you can see here, we've currently got 120 members in this test account, and that ranges from paid members right through to invoice members and maybe some unpaid members as well. So again, depending on your account setup and some of your business rules, you might not even allow members to be added into your account unless they're paid. But this is just a quick overview of your members list. Now, in terms of communicating with members, the left-hand side of the page here is really, and we can see that once we click on a feature, underneath it, will show up with a few options that you can do with your members. Important to note that with really any of the features that I click on the left-hand side, there will show some options underneath it. The ones on the left-hand side, general rule of thumb, these are more of your bulk actions. So for example, if I was wanting to communicate with my members, I can do that via clicking that button on the left-hand side. The main benefit here is that you're not needing to go through and collate a list of all of your members. It just groups them all together for you. And then it's just a matter of you type in a message just like you would on Microsoft Word or in your emails as well. It works very much the same way. And then just a matter of sending that email. Now, on contrary, you can also send emails directly to your individual members. So if I jump back to my individual list and click on, for example, Ryan Agar, You'll then note on the right-hand side, we've then got some more options that we can do. Now, differentiating between the left and right, left-hand side is your bulk options that you'd be doing towards majority or all of your members. The right-hand side, however, is basically once you click on a member's profile, you then see options to do with just that member. So for example, if we wanted to search and say, okay, we need to email Ryan because he's forgot to pay his last invoice again, so we need to go hassle him. Great, you can click email member or SMS member as well. And then that's just going to send a direct email to just that individual member. You can do a few other things like including primary family members if they have them linked, even sending a copy of the email itself to your personal email, so you've got a track record of it. But once you're ready to go, you can even create a quick preview email and make sure that you don't have any spelling mistakes, because let's be honest, we've all done it. And then we can go ahead and just click that email. Now, that's the primary method for communications in revSPORT. However, we do also have what's called EDMs, which is an upgradable feature. EDMs is the best way I can explain it. It's like a glorified email. It's what a lot of sports, especially state and national bodies, would use for their weekly newsletters. I'm sure you've seen nautical news from Australian Sailing, and that's a similar sort of format to how these additional communications can go out as well. But the core function of what you get out of revSPORT is that you can communicate via just standard email and SMS as well. Now, if, for example, we wanted to send out some communications, we wanted to report on members, we wanted to just find a group of members, this might be members from that you want to know whether they're part of a certain membership type, whether they've registered on certain date ranges, or whether you just wanted to find all of the males or females in your class association. The best way that we would recommend doing this in revSPORT is you can actually fine tune a lot of your searches so that you're not, again, having to go through a big long list of all your members and try to pick them out one by one. There's some streamlined methods in which you can do this. So this being, if you click on, and you'll notice the search functionality on the left-hand side, it's just a filtering list of information. So for example, I might want to say, great, I want revSPORT to show up with a list of all our male members with the payment status of paid, and everyone that, for example, might have an adult membership type. Once I scroll down to the bottom and click search, it will then show up with a list of 21 members that fits that criteria. What we can then do as well is we can action accordingly to those members. So for example, if I bulk select using that drop-down box there, or that tick box rather, and then select this drop-down box, we can then start emailing members, communicating with them. We can generate invoices in bulk, and we can download reports with all of that members' information as well. So again, it's just a streamlined way to be able to firstly find members and then figure out what you want to do with them from there. We always say in the platform, everything that gets inserted at the point of registration, so when members go online and register, you can report on it and you can search for it. So for example, just to give you a quick insight into what that registration form actually looks like, every class association will essentially get a free out-of-the-box website. So if you don't currently have much of an online presence for your association, revSPORT will essentially have that covered for you. You can use it to its full capacity, or you might just want to be using components of it. So really, this is where members actually get into your database. So for example, we have a number of, we call them dynamically linked pages. So things like your member registration page, events page, shop pages, events page, et cetera, et cetera. For example, if I go and click on registration, this is going to be how your members actually register into your class association. So it really is just a standard form builder. So if I go through and type in some information here about how young I am, and we click through the next steps, you'll note we can then start selecting what our membership types are and so on and so forth. So really, once we go through a couple of extra steps, it will then show up with a payment screen where I can make payments online. And we'll go into a little bit more detail into the payment side of things in a moment. But essentially, that's what it looks like from a registration perspective. And so anything that I insert into that registration form, and your class association will have the opportunity to even ask members questions, i.e. do you want to know information around their emergency contact details? Are you interested in officiating or coaching or volunteering? These are all data capture that you can have sit on a member profile. And all of this really does relate back to, if you're searching for it, you'll be able to find it if they've inserted that at the registration form, and same goes for reporting too. So just one last quick example just to elaborate on that. If we wanted to run a search for a member that's had any medical conditions, I can select yes. So as a result, when I run this search, it's going to show up with a list of members that have answered yes via their registration form. This is exactly the same for reporting too. So if I wanted to export anything out of the system via a CSV or a PDF, it's just a simple form selector. So really, as we go down the page, this is every bit of information that can be associated to a member's profile. For example, if I wanted to run a report on their sailing ID, their full name, when they first registered, their contact details, or maybe I wanted to get a better understanding of who's actually completed, a high level 1 performance coach or something along those lines, we can scroll down to the bottom, click generate report, and away we go. Now, to streamline this even further, even with searching and generating reports, you can create templates in the system too, so that you're not always needing to, for similar reports that you might be running quarterly, you don't need to go through and remember what field did I select last quarter or this quarter or the next quarter. It will automatically save this as a template for you. If you were, for example, to insert, quarter 1 and save that as a template. So you can then just click a button and generate that report, quarter on quarter or every year. It's entirely up to you. But again, general rule of thumb here, anything inserted into the platform can be reported and searched upon. The last thing that I wanted to really touch on in terms of what we can do and understand about our members once we've got them into the platform is, if I click on a member's profile, as I did before, options on the right-hand side, we've got a little button here called Member History. Now, this is a really good way for associations to, number one, get an understanding of the interaction that members have with your class association. And secondly, it's a really good way for you to first troubleshoot any sort of queries or questions that are coming from your members too. A very common example is, oh, I didn't get that email, or I didn't get that invoice. So what you can do here, you can see that we've got a list of tabs that sit on the top here. This is essentially every feature that a member can actually interact with. So for example, yep, they can receive emails, they can receive SMSs, invoices, etc. But you can also start reporting on how many events have they actually registered for. Was it a course linked event, and when was it? Right down to, have they actually bought anything from the shop, and have they paid the amount, and so on and so forth. So this is a really good tool, again, to dive into and start building out a bit of a track record. It'll start really giving you, as an association, a good understanding of number one, how long this member has actually been a part of your club for. How often they're reading your emails. Are they fairly frequent? Are they not? And how many events and other registration types are they jumping into? So just a general thumb about communications as well. You can see whether a member's actually opened an email or not. So if you are chasing up the likes of Ryan Agar, who hasn't paid his invoice or hasn't responded to any emails, you can actually see and report on whether they've opened it or not. So that's always a good little trick for any club and associations to have up their sleeve as well. All right, firing across into the next speech that I wanted to walk through, and I briefly touched on it a moment ago, but I wanted to elaborate a little bit further on this out-of-the-box website that all class associations have access to. So again, this is a free website that is built into your revSPORT account. Again, you can use this as much as you like, or if you've currently got a custom website that you're happy with, you're more than welcome to continue using that. But for example, you might just use components of this page, i.e. you might just be wanting to link in the registration page or the events page or the shop page. Really, the main purpose of this website is to streamline operations so that you're not needing to create as many pages as you can, i.e. creating drop forms for registration and so on and so forth, and creating bespoke pages to show up all of your events. That all happens for you as soon as you start creating the likes of an event or even a shop product within the admin portal of revSPORT. So the best way to think about the website, it's almost like a two-sided piece of paper, where on one side you've got the administrative portal, which is where you're doing all your groundwork and what we can see on the current screen, versus the other side of the piece of paper would be the front-facing website, which is when you create an event or you update your registration form, it'll then automatically change that and update it on your live website. Now, I know what you're probably all thinking, that websites are quite difficult to manage. You might not have a lot of IT experience, and that's totally fine. Despite what you might think, I honestly believe that I'm computer illiterate and I'm terrible on a website, but I can use it, and even my old man who works at his local bowling club can use it as well. So I promise you it's not as hard as it looks. And just to give you a bit of an understanding of how majority of our clubs and associations utilize the website, it's really just via a drag and drop widget, we call it. So for example, if I just refer back to this main page at the moment, again, the format itself can be entirely customized by yourself. It's just restricted within an overall sort of template. So for example, we can see at the top, this is all just free text that this club decided to upload some imagery, which is find a club, the shop is open, etc., etc. But as we go down the page, we've also got some a news stream, an event stream, even linked to your social media widgets, and an album here at the bottom. So it really depends on the overall layout, but how that's determined is just by this page layout section and by editing that home page. So for example, if I wanted to change this homepage layout, all I would need to do is either cross that main welcome section, which would essentially eradicate all of that content and imagery that we had sitting up there. And I might want to even put in a classes stream or an Instagram feed that sits at the very top. And similar to the second row, which is basically just by page order, if we wanted to reduce that so we didn't have the news feed show anymore, we can just reduce that to showing only 2 items, for example. And as soon as I update and save the content and then just refresh this page, it will then act accordingly and automatically update that page. So whilst it doesn't look overly great at the moment, that's just a bit of an example of how easy it is to really change the overall layout of your website. Similar to the layout, the overall theme can be changed on the left-hand side via this design button too. So for example, if you had different branding and colors for your class association, you can change that to be essentially whatever you like. It's really up to you. We have a few pre-selected color palettes. If you, for example, like the vermilion gold arrangement as opposed to this sort of aqua color, you can just change that and save the settings quite easily, and then it will just automatically update some of the fonts, for example. If you wanted to then go back and really change the background color, you can just change it via this background design as well. You can do a couple of other things like change the curvature of that sort of color gradient as well. So it really depends on your overall theme, but that's a relatively straightforward thing to change, and that will update across every page that exists on your website as well. One of the integrated aspects of the website is creating news posts. So for example, if you're wanting to keep your members up to date with frequent activity about your class association, this is already built into the platform for you. So for example, if we have a look at, let's go this 50th anniversary and just click edit, add a pre-existing one that we've created, this form that you can see here is really what you would do to create it anyway if I was to go and click add a news post. So it's really just a matter of inserting your subject, what the date of the news post is, a bit of a preview text, and some content. You can also upload file types as well. So if you wanted to upload an image that sits over the top of that news post, you're welcome to do so as well. And you can even tag your news post. So for example, a good example of this would be if you had a number of news posts around your AGM or upcoming committee meetings or anything like that, or perhaps you've got recurring trivia nights, so it really doesn't matter. But if you created a tag down the bottom here, it would mean that if a member found that tag just via your front website as well, and I'll show you what that news section looks like, they would be able to filter through all of those trivia night tags or news stories, for example. So if I just click and I'll just go to that news page for you, just so you can see what it looks like. This is all of the latest news posts that we've shown up. So if I was to click on any one of these tags, like 50 years celebration, it would just categorize those articles all together. But this is just a way that, again, it's easy for you to populate information and for it to automatically show up on your front-facing website. It can be done just by inserting it into this news page, which again just happens automatically. Additionally, as we saw earlier, you can also create a upcoming news or latest news feed as well, which just sits in this section too. So the last function that I wanted to touch on in the site section is, again, just diving more deeper into some of these dynamically linked pages. So whilst I've mentioned a couple of times the likes of events, which we'll actually touch on next, but a few other things like shop, donation, even linking into your contact form. But if you are wanting to sell or attach any, uniforms or anything like that a member can go online and purchase, you've actually got an integrated shop that revSPORT offers too. Again, this is all pre-built into your website. All that an administrator would need to really do is in the back end, view your shop page, and you can actually just start uploading pictures of the shop items that you wish to release, what sort of stock control you have, how much it costs, and away you go. So again, this is a really good way, even at the point of registration. What we see a lot of sports starting to do now is once they go through the registration form, they'll receive a welcome email from your class association and from Australian Sailing to basically say, hey, thanks for joining our sport. Great to have you. Here's a bit of information. What some sports are doing now to just try and increase the revenue stream of the sport is they will link this shop into the welcome email and just say, hey, have you checked out our shop? Here's the latest deal. You can use this discount code as a once-off, use to just try and get them through the door and spending a little bit of extra money into your class association as well. So again, this is just one extra thing that you can do with shops. That's also built in directly to a donations page too. So if you do have any, charitable organizations that you're looking to accept donations on behalf, you can do so as well through the platform. All right, so moving on to another dynamically linked page that again pulls information directly through to the front-facing website is your events section. So on the left-hand side, now you'll note that this screen looks a little bit different in comparison to some of the other screens that we've been going through tonight. The main reason for that is revSPORT's currently getting a bit of a facelift. We're essentially rejigging all of the underhood code to make it a lot more efficient, a lot more optimized, and we're just trying to update the overall theme of the platform itself. So it's less clicks to do things. It's a lot more wizardized. It's more a lot less sort of big long forms that you have to go through in order to, i.e., create an event. So there's really three different kinds of events that you can create within revSPORT. The first one is a calendar event, which is really just an event to say, hey, yep, we're doing something this weekend, but it doesn't require any interaction from a member or anyone from the public. The next one is an RSVP event, which requires someone from the public or a member to actually register and insert some level of information. And then the final is a paid event, which is just an extension from an RSVP event where it just requires them to actually make payment. Now, a lot of sports use this feature for a variety of reasons. You might not necessarily think that your class association runs a lot of events or, championships and that sort of thing, but we've had a lot of sports even use it from expression of interest forms to volunteer, sign up forms, right through to, even managing trivia nights and even regattas and that sort of thing as well. So it does have a multitude of uses. Think of it really just as a feature that allows you to collect information and payment from your members. So if we have a look into one of these events as an example, I'll pick on this trivia night. This is a setup event ready to go, but basically what the summary gives you is how many people are actually registered into this event, or how many tickets have we sold? What's a quick breakdown of have they paid versus have they unpaid, total income, and where the event is actually taking place and on what date. As we scroll down the page, you can obviously then see the list of registrations and what the total amount that they're expected to pay or have paid to. Now, you don't have to be a member to register into an event. It can be general admission tickets or bookings that you can actually take. It's really entirely up to you. What this form builder essentially looks like, just from a quick little preview, is filling in basic details such as the name of the event, where the venue is, for example. Are you actually linking it to a course that Australian Sailing might be facilitating, and so on and so forth. As you go through this form builder, it will just come to a point where you can say, yep, we want to take registrations, i.e. members or general admission actually have to insert some information. Similar to your registration form for becoming a member of your sport, you can also ask specific additional information fields, i.e. questions that members have to answer at the point that they actually register for your event. So you might want to know, if it's a trivia night, how many people are they planning on bringing along? Are they purchasing a drinks package, yes or no, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a few different things that you can do with the event. It's really just dependent on your overall requirements and what you'd be looking to do in these events. Now, one thing I will touch upon is on the payment side of things, there's a couple of different ways that you can manage this. For example, this event has actually got ticket types set up, as opposed to just having a standalone fee that everyone comes in and has to pay $10 to attend. What you can also do through events is you can set, again, different ticket types or registration types. The terminology is interchangeable. For example, a lot of sports use this for, even if it is a trivia night, as a loose example, you might have members only pricing as opposed to general admission. By creating different ticket types, you can then obviously create different pricing points. And based on whether you set them to be, yep, this ticket type or registration type is a members only ticket, that means that a member actually has to log in using their username and password to be able to access that members only ticket. As such, they'll then receive the discount. So a lot of sports do it for that purpose. You might just have different, obviously different reasons for creating, an adult, senior, junior, family ticket type as well for any events that you run to. Now, one of the main things that I really respect in this events feature is we have another option called or giving event official access. Now, what this essentially means is that if your club, for example, has a specific volunteer association, I would say, has a volunteer or a particular staff member that just looks after your events or a particular event, you can give certain levels of access so that you, as the primary administrator or the treasurer, as another example, you don't need to necessarily look after and manage the ins and outs of this event via the platform. So what you can do is you can give an event official access, meaning that any member that exists in your platform, you can make an official of this event, and you can dictate what level of access they actually have to this event. So for example, if I'm not sure if I'm an admin or not, beauty. For example, let's just say that I want to give Ryan Agar a certain level of access, and I want Ryan to actually be running basically the ins and outs of this thing. So as you can see from the brief descriptions underneath each of these levels, it just dictates what I can actually do when I log into this event. So if I gave Ryan level 3 access, it means that I can basically do everything. I can view the event, I can edit all the information, I can change the pricing, I can invite members, and so on and so forth. So if I was to add that official would essentially just be automatically sent an email with a username and password to then access this event. And again, one of the main benefits of that is that they're logging into your class association, but they're not able to see any other feature that's detailed on the left-hand side, nor are they able to see any other events apart from the one that you're actually giving them access to. So again, from a security control, it's a real positive, but more so from sharing a sharing workload perspective, it allows you to help extend across some resources to different members of your association too. How are we going for time? I think I'm on track. Beautiful. So the next one and second last one that I'm going to talk about tonight is moving into the real fun stuff, which is our finance feature. So we refer to our finance section really as a glorified bookkeeping system. RevSport isn't necessarily here to replace any external accounting packages like your Mild, your Zeros, QuickBooks, et cetera, We're really an accompaniment software for that. However, we do have still a large quantity of different sports that would use RevSport solely for managing all of their finances too. So it really just depends on what you have access to, but it's really used more as an accompaniment tool if you already have access to some of those external pieces of software. So the main functions of the finance feature really is to track and trace every bit of income that's generated for your sport. So for example, at a quick glance, we can see for money owed in, we're owed 35 different invoices for events. We've got 5 shop purchases, 10 member registrations, and so on and so forth. Now, I would hope that in the land of sailing that people pay their invoices a lot more than this sport does, but that's just a quick glance of what you can see. And again, every invoice that's generated, every payment that's made through the platform itself can be reported on and searched for. So something that I think I touched on loosely earlier was we have an integration with a payment gateway provider called Pin Payments. They are our sole online payment gateway in addition to the likes of PayPal. However, in Australia, Pin Payments is the primary use for all online transactions. Majority of sports are now starting to move to taking online payments through RevolutioniseSPORT. This basically just means for member registrations, shop purchases, events, et cetera, they're all forcing payment and taking payment at the point of registration, which means that you as a treasurer or an admin don't need to be sitting there sending emails to Ryan Ager because he never pays his invoice. Now, how this works in practice, if you have an account with Pin Payments, which is just managed by your finance settings section, and you would just go through a little button that says enable Pin Payments. Once you've essentially created an account with them, this will essentially allow you to do, or members to do, again, is pay via a credit or debit card via the online registration process for any of those features that I mentioned earlier. But what it will also do through the integration that we have with Pin Payments is that it will automatically reconcile every invoice that's paid online for you. So that means that you're not needing to jump into this, for example, reconcile invoices section, go through, click reconcile, and have to say, yep, okay, we've got a bunch of tickets for Chris Moore here. He paid on X date. He paid via cash or bank deposit. Here's his receipt number. Click update payments. Now, that's what some sports still do. It really just depends on the level of digital maturity. However, we do see most sports now moving to that online transaction method purely from a resource and time-saving method, not having to go through and actually reconcile any of those invoices manually. It just happens automatically. So as soon as a transaction has been made via Pin Payments, via that online payment form, it will just automatically show as a paid invoice, and you can see the date and timestamp there. It usually takes about 3 or 4 business days for funds to be transferred into your account. And again, one of the main benefits that will exist from, existing in what we call a peak or a tiered system is that when transactions go through for member registrations, they automatically split off into multiple different bank accounts based on that hierarchy that I showed you earlier. Now, whilst the sailing peak system is modeled a little bit differently to most sports, a lot of sports, for example, would have a club fee, an association fee, a state fee, and a national fee, and by which if a member goes and registers at the club level, they would pay the total combined amount all in one invoice, and the funds automatically split off to the club, the association, the state, and the national body all in one go. So there's no reimbursement of funds in that case either. The same goes for if you're setting up any course-linked events as well. So if I think Australian Sailing encapsulate a fee on top of that, your class association or just other sailing clubs might charge a fee for hosting that or running that course as well. same thing, the funds will automatically split off into the respective bank accounts. So again, you as administrators don't need to go and or receive invoices from any of the state associations or the national body in this scenario. So again, that's just a couple of the main benefits of online payments. And what happens essentially once members have been charged or have made payments online is the main purpose of the finance feature, again, other than accepting payments, is being able to report on them. So whilst this page looks awfully scary, there's a whole bunch of different reports that you can do in revSPORT. The main ones that I would really focus on as soon as you start jumping into your account and having a bit of a test around is this income transaction summary and the PIN payment summary. So to differentiate between those two main reports, income transaction summary will detail every bit of payment or every invoice that's actually been created within your account, regardless of whether they were made via bank deposit, cash, check, under the bar, whatever you want, as opposed to PIN payments will show you transactions only for online payments that were made. So for example, if I click on this income transaction summary, just to give you a bit of an idea of what filtering options you can do, how you can export it, and so on and so forth, similar to what we saw in the members reporting, it's just a detailed list of, okay, what information do you actually want to extract out of the system? Do you want to know the invoice reference number, the transaction type, i.e. was it a shop purchase, was it a event purchase or a member registration, right through to filtering it via date range, payments, date, and so on and so forth. So again, what these reports look like will be entirely up to you. Similar to those member reports, you can create templates. So if you're needing to run a quarterly report or a weekly report, you can save those as templates so you're not needing to go through and remember what you selected last week. Now, I mentioned earlier around external accounting softwares like Mild and Xero and so forth. What you can do if you do use those existing softwares, we actually have created what's called, we call it a Xero format. We worked with Xero to create essentially a restricted template that will synchronize when you're importing financial information directly into Xero. However, the format is very, very similar for the likes of Mild and QuickBooks and so on. So what this essentially does, as you can see, when I've clicked it or selected that format, it's reduced the filtering options I have. But what this does and what this means is that when you select any of these fields and you export it via a CSV, you can import that directly into Xero without any manipulation of column headings, rows, or anything like that. It just automatically does it. So we basically just built out this form so it's compatible and easier to import information into those accounting softwares as well. Alrighties, last one to go through tonight before we open up for a bit of questions. I'm going to jump into just one of our governance tools, which is meetings. Now, a lot of our sports are starting to get into the habit of actually inserting meeting minutes. I used to volunteer at a local cricket club when I was a little bit younger. And the way that we operated, and to be honest, the way a lot of sports still operate is via spreadsheets and putting the last meeting minutes into a filing cabinet somewhere, which probably has lots of cobwebs on it and that sort of thing. Now, it's a really good habit, especially when you have the functionality available to start inserting and creating committee meetings, appointments, AGMs, all that sort of stuff via a digital platform. The main reason being, if there is any sort of turnover of staff members, or if there's information that you need to grab quite quickly, it's all located in one place, and you're not needing to sort through a big long filing cabinet like I used to do. So, for example, if we have a look at one of these recent committee meetings, you can essentially insert any of the attendees' names, if there's any apologies, the business arising, i.e. what items are we discussing tonight, whether there was, or who moved the item or the motion, who was it seconded by, was it carried, et cetera, et cetera. But what you can do preemptively before meetings as well is that you can send out the agenda automatically through this meetings feature. You can send out the minutes post-meeting as well. So again, all of this information is centralized into one location for you. Another great or important aspect of this meetings feature is you can actually seal a meeting. via this section here, which basically locks it from editing. I'll give you a quick story which actually happened, whereby we had a disgruntled club member that decided to go through and basically start just tearing up information past past motions and movements, because that just did not go against his agenda. It sounds extreme, but believe me, we build these things because it happened once upon a time. So what that means by sealing a meeting, that no administrator can actually go in there and edit any of the information. It's there for historical purposes. So if a new committee was voted in yesterday and they're going through some of the past minutes or agendas, all of that information hasn't been tampered with. The last part of meetings, which is a really good one just for trend allocate or analytics as well, is when you create a meeting, you can also tag what was primarily discussed. So did we discuss fundraising? Did we discuss injuries or reporting or drainage or discipline? What this tag section will do is it'll just give you a high level or a quick overview of what are the most commonly brought up agendas or items across all of your meetings. So for example, if I went in to click on sponsors, given that that's quite a commonly used one, I think these are just a couple of examples, so I'll do well to actually find a couple here. But basically what that would do is it would show up with a list of all of your meetings that actually had fundraising tagged to it. So that way, again, you're not needing to go through, what date did we discuss this? Rather, you can just streamline that search process by just clicking on those. We call it like a word cloud. So you can just select those tags if you like, and it'll just show up with a list of every time that you've had a meeting and you've mentioned the likes of fundraising and so on and so forth. So again, this is a really good habit to get into. It's something that we see a lot of sports, the more digitally mature that they become, they're starting to insert a lot of their meetings on a regular basis, right through to even lodging injury incident reports and creating tasks from meetings as well. So if you did want to go so far as creating meetings, you can actually follow up and make action items from these meetings and say, okay, Ryan Agar needs to go and follow up on X task, for example. Alrighty, so look, that's essentially all I wanted to run through tonight. I appreciate that it is quite a select few features and quite a quick run through as that. But again, we're obviously open for any questions that you have now. We've got our support team that work Monday to Friday and are ready for any questions that you might have going forward as well. But I'm happy to throw it back to Ben or Chantel to run through any questions that we've got.
Okay, so I might just take just a minute at the moment just to kind of touch on the tiered structure that Ryan made mention of, because this is a particular interest to our class associations, less so than our clubs and centres where it's virtually not relevant. Class associations within revSPORT are able to be set up as a tiered structure within the Australian sailing ecosystem in revSPORT. So what this actually does is it allows like the state association to be linked to the national portal, and then the members can register in their state association and automatically flow up to the national level and be recognised in the national association as an active class association member. It is worth noting that if this is of interest, it works best when the state associations and the national association have the same membership year and season rollover date. It just works best that way. There are a number of other considerations if class associations are interested in moving to this sort of structure. So we will be providing a bit more detailed information after tonight in our webinar pack. So what we might do now is actually just throw to Rob, Annie, if that's okay, who will just cover how the NACRAs have utilised revSPORT and the tiered structure, and then we'll come back for some questions at the end.
Hi, thanks for having me along to the meeting tonight. I'm from the NACRA Association of Australia, and we have been successfully using revSPORT for the last few years to manage all of our memberships and events and our websites. I just wanted to, I guess, share some of the challenges, but also mostly the benefits of using revSPORT. So, look, the biggest challenge we had was around change, really getting people on board to away from the paper-based systems and onto revSPORT. That's really the main challenge. And we've come together. We're a united association now. We've got all the states on board, and we are successfully using revSPORT to manage renewals, new memberships, our website, and also all our events for our state and national events via revSPORT. So it's really cool. We run a parent-child setup for our database. All our state bodies operate in their own databases independently of each other. One can't see the other, but they also, in particular, one of the must-haves for the way we structure our association is that the state associations manage their own money. So revSPORT has its own setup so that each state can have its own bank account details when memberships get renewed, when events get managed. That state body has its own banking details in its own database. But from a state body point of view, all of our memberships roll up into a parent database, and we can see nationally at any time how many members and what the member demographics looks like nationally. So it's very, very cool. revSPORT has heaps of reports, lots of functionality, and a great amount of support from both revSPORT and Australian Sailing. Annie and Chantal certainly were heavily involved in getting us set up and transitioned from the paper-based over to online. Look, I think like most organizations, we were using paper-based systems. We'd rock up to an event and there'd be paper forms to fill out to join your membership, and there'd be another form to register for the event, and all the collections and everything was all by cash or check or it was a mess. So now everything is done prior to the event. So everybody's memberships are up to date. Everybody's everybody registered for the events prior to like our state titles or national titles, and we can add on things to the event, like if we want to put t-shirts onto the event, if we want to put, sometimes we'll have optional event like a presentation note or something is an option for the end of nationals. So some people come, some people don't, but we can build that into the actual event as well. So yeah, it's revSPORT's been a great success for us. I would highly recommend it to any associations or any groups out there wanting to manage their organization. And I can highly recommend revSPORT. Thank you.
Yeah, I've just had a quick look at the questions raised in the chat, and it looks like Ryan has basically knocked all of them off. Does anybody have any quick questions before we just close out the webinar tonight? Like I said, we will be contacting everybody, so you'll be able to maybe fire off some questions via email, offline, once you digest probably what you've been shown tonight. Is there anything that anybody has to ask now? Ben?
Yeah,
I've got a question.
Where, as mentioned, a tiered system. If most sailors are in a club plus a class, so if they change their details in their club, does that filter through to the association's database? Yes, it will. Yeah, so it's one profile regardless of where they're a member. Yep. Okay, so all the data associated with their membership, membership number gets filtered through to all the people who have access to that. Yep. Okay, that's handy. Thank you.
Sorry, there was another question, I think.
Yeah, Richie, I've got one. So if someone buys a boat and wants to join your association and they're sort of new to the sport, so haven't actually joined a sailing club first, is that a problem?
No, you can be a member of just a class association. That's fine.
Cool. So okay. I guess so to do the registration process then, they would get allocated an Australian sailing number that would show up as being non-active. Is that how it would work?
They'll be active as a class association member.
Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly share one more slide and then I'll throw over to Ben just to wrap us up. So everything you've seen tonight, it's great stuff. But you're probably wondering after tonight, like, how will your class progress with revSPORT? So what we're going to do after tonight is we will send out, we're referring to it as an expression of interest form, which we're hoping to just collect some information from you all in terms of, which might help us work out where you're at in terms of using revSPORT and what kind of assistance you might need. You will receive support from a club support team member from Australian Sailing to help you through the process. You do also have access to revSPORT via your revSPORT portal. And you can always reach out to myself directly via our online services email, which we will include in the webinar pack. So just to wrap up, our next steps to continue our support to our class associations is to send everybody a webinar pack, which will include a recording of tonight, the expression of interest form. We will collate the questions that were raised tonight just so you can read and digest them off outside of the call. And of course, we will be seeking feedback on tonight's webinar. And finally, just from myself, I'd like to thank Annie, Ryan and Rob for their time tonight. And I will now hand over to Ben to sign us off.
Excellent. Thank you, Chantel. Yeah, a big thank you to Ryan for your time tonight, and Chantel and Annie for putting all of this together. It's great for me, come up with the idea and then go handball to Chantel and Annie to make it all happen. So thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who's joined tonight. Hopefully it has provided you with some value and at least something to take away to the committee and have a look at and have a talk about. I'm very happy for you to share all the information that you receive to the committee and to other committee members of clubs and classes. We're really keen to try and get as much of this information as widely spread as possible. revSPORT and the platform and the portal sort of a mandatory requirements for clubs to use in terms of using and recording members in the database. And that may be a direction that we consider heading for class associations, so that we have the sport captured in one place where we can communicate and with all class association members as well as club members, and really get the sport into one place to have accurate data to be able to report back to you as members, but also to governments and other organisations that we need to provide accurate reporting to. That's sort of a formality and a compliance avenue, whereas we really believe the advantages of the system are the real benefit to reducing administration on volunteers and being able to present your class association in a professional manner to potential new members. So please, if there's any further questions, feel free to direct them through to Chantel and Annie, or your local club support team in wherever state you are. And yeah, please share the information with others, and we'll look forward to you joining our next class association webinar at a date still to be set in the near future. So yes, thank you, and yeah, hope you have a great end to the week.